When we normally think about narrative structure, there's this kind of fundamental expectation of stability, like architectural stability.
Right, yeah, a foundation.
Exactly. We just assume a story operates like a building.
Hmm.
You enter through the front door of the very first chapter, and then you just sort of walk down this linear hallway of the plot.
Maybe checking out a few side rooms along the way for character development.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And eventually you exit through the back door of the conclusion. And we really rely on that grounding. I mean, it gives us a sense of spatial and temporal logic as a reader or a listener.
It provides cognitive resolution, really. I mean, the human brain is essentially this massive prediction engine. We crave a clear beginning, a compounding middle, and a definitive end.
Because it mirrors real life.
Exactly. Or at least how we want to perceive our own lives, as a journey with a very clear destination.
But then occasionally you encounter a piece of media that takes that traditional blueprint, just completely crumples it up, and constructs this, like, optical illusion instead.
Which is always a wild ride.
Oh, totally. You step through that front door, but suddenly you are falling. Like the floor literally becomes the ceiling. A pirate ship just dissolves into a cozy bedroom. And the deeper you go into it, the more the foundational rules of reality are just completely rewritten.
So we aren't exploring a house anymore.
No, we are navigating a cognitive labyrinth.
What you're referring to is recursive storytelling. It's a structure where a narrative is embedded within another narrative, and theoretically that can extend into infinity.
It's like those Russian nesting dolls, right?
Yeah, the Matryoshka dolls. It's a concept that has fascinated mathematicians, philosophers, and storytellers for centuries, simply because it fundamentally disrupts that prediction engine we just talked about.
Which is exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive. So if you're the kind of person who enjoys stepping off the linear path and getting hopelessly immersed in, complex nested layers of information, you're going to find this fascinating.
It's a really great topic.
So our source material today is actually a transcript from a YouTube video. Specifically, it's an audio performance of the classic children's book, Charlie Cook's Favorite Book.
Written by Julia Donaldson and illustrated by Axel Scheffler.
Yes. And this specific audio version is brilliantly read by Imelda Staunton and Stephen Pacey.
And, at a superficial glance, it presents itself as standard juvenile fiction, just a nice children's book. Yet the mechanics under the hood are incredibly sophisticated.
Oh, absolutely.
It really operates as a masterclass in genre hopping and fractal storytelling.
So our mission today is to figure out the how and the why. Like, how does a seemingly innocent piece of children's media successfully execute a complex, infinite narrative loop? And why does this specific structure resonate so deeply with how we actually process information?
It's a big task.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand the labyrinth, we really have to look at where the entrance is built.
Right. And we begin with a very strong anchor in mundane reality. We're introduced to a boy named Charlie Cook.
Just a normal kid.
Yep. He is situated in a cozy armchair, engaging in the very simple act of reading a book.
And the very first jump we make is a drastic one.
Yeah.
Like, immediately. He is reading about a leaky pirate ship that's basically on the verge of a total maritime disaster.
High stakes right away.
Seriously. The pirate chief gets blamed for the leak. He is forced to walk the plank, manages to swim to a deserted island, and uses his literal hook hand to dig up a buried treasure chest.
Classic pirate trope.
But here is the critical pivot. Inside that chest, there is no gold. There's a book. And it's a book about Goldilocks and three very indignant bears who are complaining about their porridge.
Naturally.
Right. And when Baby Bear checks his bedroom, Goldilocks is fast asleep, holding his favorite book.
What's fascinating here is the deliberate subversion of intrinsic value. The authors are immediately signaling to the reader that the currency of this universe is not wealth or material gain.
It's not gold coins.
No, it is narrative itself.
See, I have to challenge the internal logic of that for a second, though. Just think about the physical reality of the pirate chief.
Okay, let's look at him.
This guy has survived a mutiny. He nearly drowned in the ocean, dragged himself onto a sandy beach, and manually excavated a heavy wooden chest using a hook.
He's had a rough day.
A terrible day. From an evolutionary survival standpoint, finding a bored book about a fairy tale is the ultimate anticlimax. I mean, why would a hardened, salty pirate consider a story about porridge to be his grand reward?
Well, I think that perceived anticlimax is actually the engine of the entire structure.
Really? How so?
Think about it. The pirate's physical reality is brutal. it's linear, and it's intensely focused on survival. By placing a children's book in the chest, the narrative suggests that information, and specifically the ability to escape one's immediate harsh reality into another world, is the true treasure.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
The story acts as a portal. It violently pulls us out of this high-stakes maritime adventure and just drops us into a petty domestic fairy tale dispute.
You know, it is the exact literary equivalent of the Wikipedia rabbit
Oh,
hole.
that's a perfect analogy.
You know the exact phenomenon. You sit down at your computer with a clear, linear goal. You want to look up, say, the historical context of 17th century piracy.
Right, very focused.
But then, in the second paragraph, there is a hyperlink about a specific island's geography. So you click it, and then that page has a link about the island's indigenous bear population. So you click that.
And before you know it,
2 hours later, you are meticulously reading about the thermodynamic properties of porridge, and you're completely decoupled from your original intent. The pirate is just entirely forgotten.
that is a highly accurate comparison of the cognitive mechanism at play here. Associative thinking often overrides linear thinking in our minds.
We just can't help ourselves.
We really can't. Our brains are wired to seek novelty. Each new hyperlink, or in Charlie Cook's case, each new embedded book provides a fresh hit of dopamine.
So we just abandon the old story.
Exactly. The initial premise is discarded because the promise of new information is neurologically irresistible.
And that neurological hijack becomes the central theme as we dive into the next layer. Because Baby Bear's book transports us away from the fairy tale and into a medieval fantasy setting. We are introduced to Sir Percy Pilkington, who is a supposedly bold and fearless knight.
And he's in a bit of a situation.
Yeah, he is standing literally face to face with a massive, fire-breathing dragon.
A scenario that, historically and mythologically, demands immediate kinetic action. It's fight or flight.
Exactly. But Sir Percy chooses a third option reading.
He just stops.
He literally halts the combat. He tells the dragon, wait, I'm not quite ready for the fight. And while his armor is audibly clanking and shaking in terror, he opens his favorite book to read a joke aloud.
Notice how the stakes have escalated here. In the previous layer, the book was merely a reward found at the end of an ordeal.
Like the pirate finding the chest.
Right. But here, the act of consuming media actively interrupts a life-or-death survival imperative. The knight is prioritizing information consumption over his own physical safety.
I found myself actually laughing out loud at the specific sensory detail of the armor shaking. It perfectly captures that, hold on, let me finish this chapter impulse.
We've all been there.
We have all experienced that exact tension. Your phone is ringing, a deadline is looming at work, maybe someone's asking you a direct question, but you are at the climax of a paragraph and you simply cannot disengage.
You're locked in.
You prioritize the artificial narrative over your immediate physical environment. Sir Percy is just doing that with a lethal predator.
I would push the analysis a step further, actually. It isn't just about prioritizing the narrative. It is about cognitive override.
Cognitive override.
Yes. The story suggests that engaging with information is a force powerful enough to disarm violence. The knight doesn't need a sword to stop the dragon. He uses a joke book.
Wow. And that idea of a text actively altering reality really bleeds into the joke Sir Percy is reading. The joke is about Rowena Redalot, who is a very well-read frog.
A great name, by the way.
So good. She hops across a lily pad over a log and lands in a library by a brook. But when she lands on a book, she doesn't make a standard biological frog call. The text explicitly says she croaks, read it, read it.
A phonetic manipulation of ribbit.
Right.
But beneath that auditory pun, we see a profound subversion of biological instinct. Rowena's very voice, her evolutionary mating call, has been replaced by a literary command.
She is fundamentally defined by her literacy, and she is not an isolated incident in this bizarre animal kingdom. The book Rowena lands on is about competition among birds to build the best nest.
Judged by an owl, of course.
Of course. And the victor is a rook. The rook wins because his nest is lined entirely with pages from his favorite book.
Which represents another escalation in the function of literature within this universe. Books are no longer just portals or shields, they have become physical architecture.
They're building materials.
Exactly. The rook constructs its shelter, its protection against the elements, out of stories. But consider the implication here. By building a home out of paper, the rook is choosing intellectual comfort over structural integrity.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because just as we accept this whimsical premise of, highly literate animals building paper houses, the story yanks us violently back into the human world.
A jarring transition.
Very. And it does so to highlight a glaring psychological flaw. So we dive into the pages lining the rook's nest, and we meet a little girl. She is looking up at the sky and witnessing a flying saucer.
An actual UFO.
Yes, there are actual green aliens waving at her from the ship.
The quintessential paradigm-shifting event, the undeniable proof that humanity is not alone in the universe.
Right. So obviously she immediately tugs on her mother's sleeve to point out this cosmic miracle. But the mother refuses to look up. Her response is, "Hush, I'm trying to read my favorite magazine."
It's wild.
Now, I have to argue that this is deeply unsettling under the guise of a joke. She is willfully ignoring extraterrestrial life.
Well, is it truly that unsettling, or is it just an uncomfortable mirror? I think this scene is a surgical critique of attentional blindness.
You don't think it's exaggerated? I mean, aliens.
Only slightly. Attentional blindness occurs when an individual fails to perceive an unexpected stimulus that is in plain sight, purely as a result of a lack of attention.
Oh, like when you're looking right at your keys but can't see them.
Exactly. Or think about modern society. How many people cross busy intersections, completely absorbed in a screen, entirely blind to two-ton vehicles passing inches away?
That is a terrifyingly good point.
The mother's reality is entirely filtered through the borders of her magazine. The authors are illustrating how media consumption doesn't just distract us, it actually has the power to erase the physical world around us.
Which makes the content of that all-important magazine incredibly ironic.
Yeah.
She is ignoring aliens to read a true crime thriller.
Priorities, right.
The magazine features a wicked jewel thief who steals the king's crown, makes this dramatic getaway, and is promptly thwarted because his car gets stuck behind a flock of sheep.
It's just a classic country road problem.
The king dials 999, the police throw the thief in prison, and the thief sits in his cell reading a book.
It is a masterful use of anticlimax. The grand, high-stakes drama of a royal heist is undone by the most mundane pastoral obstacle imaginable, a traffic jam caused by sheep.
It perfectly highlights the absurdity of what we choose to pay attention to. I mean, the mother ignores a literal UFO to read about a bumbling criminal stopped by farm animals.
The contrast is brilliant.
The mundane and the spectacular are constantly inverted in this story. But the constant is always the act of reading. Even when stripped of his physical freedom, the imprisoned thief finds his escape hatch in the pages of a book.
Exactly. And the subject matter of the thief's book introduces a radical shift in the story's scale. We move from a concept of escapism to a concept of gluttony.
Yes, the crocodile. The thief is reading about a crocodile. This crocodile is tired of eating fish and crawls onto land looking for a new dish.
A dietary change.
But instead of wandering into a butcher shop or something, he waddles into a bookshop. The text notes that he grew, quote, even greedier, unquote, as he started reading page 90 of a massive encyclopedia.
Which is quite an image.
No, I have to pause here. A massive, heavily armored reptile with giant claws is delicately turning to exactly page 90 of a thin-capered reference book.
It is logistically absurd, yes. But symbolically, it is vital. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the crocodile represents the synthesis of the themes we have been tracking.
How do you mean?
Well, he begins with the physiological hunger. He wants a new dish, a physical meal. But upon entering the environment of the bookshop, that physical appetite is transmuted into an intellectual appetite. He is literally consuming information.
Information gluttony. Wow. That resonates so strongly with how we interact with the internet today.
We do it all the time.
We don't just read anymore, we binge. We consume articles, podcasts, and feeds until we are just bloated with disconnected facts.
Precisely. And the specific fact the crocodile is devouring on page 90 sets the stage for the final cosmic escalation of the narrative.
Oh, the cake. He is reading about the biggest birthday cake the world has ever seen, baked specifically for the queen. The scale is suddenly blowing up.
It's massive.
We've gone from a small jail cell to a terrestrial predator in a shop to a world record-breaking royal monument. And the cake is apparently so magnificent that a famous spaceman takes a slice of it, along with a book, all the way to Jupiter.
The narrative has officially broken the bonds of Earth's gravity.
We're in space.
This outward expansion is actually a common psychological mechanism in storytelling. When the internal logic of a narrative is pushed to its absolute limits, the only remaining direction is cosmic. We have transitioned from the hyperlocal to the interplanetary.
It really feels like the narrative string has been pulled as far as it can possibly stretch. I mean, you are floating near Jupiter. There is nowhere else to go in the physical realm.
So the story has to pivot again.
Right, so it sidesteps into the metaphysical. The spaceman's book is about a castle ghost.
The introduction of the supernatural element.
This ghost glides around her castle, carrying her own head, actively scaring people, and she functions perfectly well as a headless apparition.
Is doing her job.
Doing great, but when morning comes, she retreats to a shady nook and physically puts her head back onto her shoulders. Why? Specifically so she can read her favorite book.
Think about that. The supernatural entity engaging in a deeply grounded human cognitive process.
So what does this all mean? I have to admit, I love the bizarre internal logic of this scene. The ghost doesn't need her head attached to navigate space or to interact with the physical world,
Not at all.
but to engage with text, to parse syntax and absorb a narrative. For that, she needs her eyes connected to her brain. She has to literally put her head back on to focus.
It's a fantastic metaphor.
It really is a metaphor for the mental preparation required to transition from mindlessly wandering through your day to actively focusing on a complex piece of information.
It is a profound image of cognitive assembly. And this raises an important question, one that defines the entire architecture of this deep dive. We must look at the specific content of the ghost's text.
The final book.
Yes, we have cascaded through pirates, bears, knights, frogs, birds, aliens, thieves, crocodiles, and spacemen. What is the ultimate destination of this recursive chain?
The ghost opens her book, and she reads about a cozy armchair and a boy called Charlie Cook.
The narrative does not resolve, it loops.
It drops us right back into the living room where we started. I'll admit, tracing that line back to its origin is a little dizzying.
It can be.
It is the literary equivalent of holding two mirrors up to each other. You know, when you're looking down a hallway of infinite reflections.
I wouldn't call it dizzying, actually. Rather, it exposes how our brains actually prefer to process reality, even if it contradicts our desire for a clean ending.
Really? But we talked about wanting an ending earlier.
We do, but the genius of the infinite narrative loop is that it fundamentally destabilizes the hierarchy of reality. If Charlie Cook is the master reality, reading about the pirate, but Charlie Cook is simultaneously just a character in the ghost's book.
Wait, yeah.
Who is the original author and who is the fictional creation?
They all exist in a state of superposition. It forces the reader to realize that the framework of the story is entirely arbitrary. Every staircase leads right back to the staircase you are already standing on.
It operates as a fractal. And
Right.
metaphorically, it is a brilliant representation of the lifelong cycle of learning.
Oh, I like that.
Every piece of new information you consume, whether it's about thermodynamics, evolutionary biology, or history, eventually forces you to reevaluate your own reality.
Because you've changed.
Exactly. The farther outward you travel in your pursuit of knowledge, the more those diverse perspectives loop back to inform your own starting point. The journey alters the perception of the armchair.
That is an incredibly potent way to view it. Let's take a breath and map the sheer scale of the cognitive journey we just unpacked today.
It's a long list.
It is. We started in a quiet living room, utilized a pirate's treasure to hack our associative thinking, paused a lethal dragon fight to prioritize information over survival, watched a frog's biology get rewritten by text,
The Reddit frog.
ignored undeniable proof of aliens due to attentional blindness, fed an encyclopedia to a crocodile, launched the narrative to Jupiter, and watched a ghost physically assemble her brain to read all to end up exactly where we began.
It demonstrates the immense elasticity of nested storytelling. It proves that a single, tightly constrained structure can contain infinite multitudes without collapsing under its own weight.
And it serves as a brilliant reminder to you, listening to this right now, about the pervasive power of information. Whether you are a knight seeking escapism, a crocodile suffering from information gluttony, or a busy professional listening to a deep dive to gain a new perspective, that feeling of the physical world falling away while your brain locks onto a fascinating concept is a universal cognitive phenomenon. We all want to know what is inside the next treasure chest.
It bridges the gap between our mundane routines and the extraordinary complexity of the world. The architecture of knowledge is rarely a straight line. Often, the most rewarding intellectual pursuits are the ones that force us to abandon the hallway entirely and explore the impossible architecture of the labyrinth.
It makes you appreciate the rabbit holes rather than fighting them.
Precisely. And before we conclude our analysis today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to examine on your own.
Let's hear it.
We have established that within the mechanics of this story, every single entity is simply a construct within someone else's media consumption. The stark reality of the pirate is merely fiction to Charlie Cook. The sprawling reality of the spaceman is merely fiction to the ghost. If this chain of nested realities truly extends outward into infinity, constantly looping back on itself in an endless cycle of authors and readers, whose book are you a character in right now?
Oh, that is the ultimate cognitive disruption. It reframes the entire concept of free will. Keep an eye on the architecture around you, everyone. You never know when your reality might just be the next chapter in someone else's favorite book.